Good morning, everyone. You never want to be in a place where you're following the Melissa, Tom, and Andy show. That is my luck. My name is Mei Lee. I am a member of the Guild of Future Architects and a member of the leadership team. We are thrilled to be here with you this morning and excited, actually, in what's to come. So you might be asking yourselves, what is the Guild of Future Architects? It's a 2-year-old organization that emerged out of many conversations, both between our first executive director, Kamal Sinclair, a well-known artist who came out of Sundance and who was in charge of the New Frontiers program, our founder, Sharon Chang, who was the first creative director of American Idol, and then moved her energy into impact investing and trying to make systemic change, and various other conversations she and I had over the years about how to break silos inside of large systems. It is an organization that is self-designed to end in 100 years because we are convinced that we will have succeeded in creating a prosperous and more beautiful and equitable future for all of those here on this planet. So it's a little bit like Mission Impossible, but instead of 60 seconds, we have 100 years. And you might be asking yourselves, what are future architects? What is future architecture? So we use it both as a verb, as a process, as a mindset, as well as a noun. Our members are people who are artists, technologists, business people, doctors, journalists, from all walks of life. They are place-based, so we are community-based in social justice, in advocacy, across a variety of subject matter. So whether it's in finance, in law, in making movies, we come together as community with the ability to see through our current structures to something else that could be. We use our imaginations with grace, with optimism. I think we'll take a page from Tom's book. Patience and perseverance and a very healthy dose of humility to see beyond silos. We cross-pollinate, and like the MIT Media Lab, we are distinctly anti-disciplinary. In terms of who we are, I want to take a moment here to introduce a couple of the members of our community who were nice enough to come and join us to help facilitate this particular exercise. First, we have a Philadelphia-based, born and raised, Tayyib Smith, who is an entrepreneur and a business person here in Philadelphia. He has co-working spaces in real estate. He has started actually a new news initiative to try to introduce Black and brown perspectives into news and journalism, and is part of actually our new news Future of Journalism incubator. Standing on the other side here is Dr. Anita Rao. Anita is actually the senior medical officer in the city of Chicago's Department of Health as the mental health innovation person. She is trained as a psychiatrist from the Northwestern School of Medicine, and is a fellow actually at the MIT Open Documentary Lab, interested actually in the power of narrative to change a lot of how we think about mental illness and how we treat it and think about it in our society here. Who else do we have? We have Cassie Owens, who is also a Philadelphia-based journalist. She is a member with Tayyib of the incubator, and she works at the Philadelphia Inquirer. I'm going to let our two co-facilitators introduce themselves, so I will leave you by introducing myself. I am the unusual outlier person here. I spent the first 10 years of my career actually on Wall Street, both as a lawyer and as a trader, and a very well-known investment bank who will remain unnamed because it's sort of like Voldemort now. I spent the middle 10 years as an entrepreneur, both in the tech space and the digital ad agency space. I started a number of companies, raised money in the Valley, in Europe, and also in Asia. And then I would say the last 10 years, I have pivoted entirely into the innovation and education space. I was the senior person at NYU who started, designed, and executed the campus in Shanghai, the first degree-granting campus in the People's Republic of China. That took about 4 or 5 years. I moved my family to Shanghai. And then the mayor of Shanghai asked me to start a second new university in the model of Caltech and Carnegie Mellon. So I would have been the only woman, the only American, and the only non-PhD scientist to join that leadership team, where I was in charge of the curriculum for social sciences, entrepreneurship, and innovation. So I did that until the writing on the wall was clear that education was no longer going to be open in that part of the world, and we transitioned the family back to the US in 2018, where I've spent most of my time leading organizational change in both large multinational corporations as well as social justice organizations to move from the large traditional philanthropic or giving model into a more community-based social justice intersectional lens. So with that, I will turn you over to my colleagues. I will come back in a few minutes for a sort of grounding exercise, but I want to give it now to Rob and Jessica. Thank you.
No, actually, yeah, hold this. This is fine. Jessica, please introduce yourself first.
All right. Hi, I'm Jessica Clark. I'm based here in Philly. I'm the founder and director of Dot Connector Studio, which is a media strategy and forecasting firm. I'm also directing the New News Initiative. I work with foundations and makers to understand what's coming next in media and technology and how to leverage that for social justice and the types of goals that I hear all of you speaking about today. So I'm excited to play with you.
And I am the other facilitator who will be walking you through our process. My name is Robert Sinclair. I'm a writer and an artist. Yeah, I'm a writer and artist. Okay, so now I'm smiling because now is the time that we get to disrupt and go off the rails. That's who we are. We figured we should probably tell you, give you an idea. So now we're going to, we're going to have some fun. So I'm going to bring back up May. We're going to do a little sort of, you'll see.
So everybody's been sitting for 3 days. I have a really loud voice because, as I say, I professionally grew up on a trading floor where all we did was shout at each other. So hopefully the people in the back can hear me. I come to you in this exercise both in honor of Melissa, who some of you may know is a stand-up.
Keep her microphone.
And so,
He's telling you to mic you.
all right, I don't shout loud enough, so I'm going to try this. We do this in honor of Melissa, who's a stand-up comedian, but we also do this in honor and in the understanding that what's above the head is connected with what's below the neck, and that wellness is both mental and physical. And I come to you and I do this really in gratitude to all of you for this extraordinary work that you do. As an immigrant, as the child of parents who endured trauma and civil war, with mental illness in our family and domestic violence, and as a working mom during COVID who threw up her hands and said, everybody go to their corner and call their therapist right now. Can't do this anymore on my own. So I want everybody to stand up. We're going to do this exercise, understanding that physical groundedness and happiness and laughter is an important part of being able to open your minds. In Chinese, there is to be open-minded is kai feng, which is to open your brain, and to be happy is actually kai xing, which is to open your heart. So what we will try to do today, and what I used to teach my students in China, is to be open-minded. You have to have an open heart. Happiness and open-mindedness are connected. We're going to do the next 3 exercises 5 times in a row, and then we're going to turn to the person standing to our left or our right, and then do it together just a few times. So first, I'd like everybody actually to just plant your feet. It's a little hard with your shoes. Bend your knees slightly and feel all 4 corners of your feet as if you have wheels on each corner of your feet, grounding into the ground. Just feel your body settle in. And just take a moment to feel your body, because this is your rooting into our Mother Earth. And as Melissa says, this is a woohoo moment. She hates these. This is part of the hatred in her heart. I know that. Okay. I'm going to put this microphone down. The next thing we're going to do is clap together. And as we clap, we're going to say, ho, ho, ha, ha, ha. And I will lead. This will show you that I am not fearful of failure in front of many people. You can tell that this is part of my DNA. Hold this. All right, are we ready? Not good at math. Couldn't count stars. It was close enough. All right. Next, we're going to do just a little deep breathing. 5 5 times. I want you to breathe in for the count of 4. Hold it for the count of 4. Breathe out for the count of 4. And then just wait. So, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, and hold it. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. One more time. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, and exhale. 2, 3, 4. Okay, now what we're going to do with all that breathing, you're going to breathe in, and then you're going to laugh when you breathe out. So it's going to be a fake laugh. It's okay, we're going to trick our bodies into feeling happy. So would you like to demonstrate, Gofalings? Okay, we're going to breathe in through our nose, and then laugh. One more time. And again. How do we feel? One more time. Now I want, see, and people now start to laugh. It just happens that you start to giggle. I want you to turn to somebody to your right or to your left, make sure nobody's left out. I want you to look at each other. And I want you to breathe in and then laugh at each other.
Oh,
I know it.
you did great. Yeah.
Do you want the stage, Rob?
No. I'm gonna.
Yeah, it's glory.
All right, now that we've opened our minds, and we've opened our brains, and we've opened our hearts, and we feel just a little bit happy, we can sit down. And we're going to ask you to take yourselves out of your containers and your silos of, I'm a doctor, I'm a community worker, I'm a funder. Take away the silos, take away the obstacles. Rob and Jessica will now take you on a journey of radical imagination and create the space for co-creation.
Because, like many of you, my eyes and screens have had damage over the past year. These are excerpts from a piece called Departure as Arrival. My father had stopped speaking a few days before, his pale blue eyes, cloudy and wide, staring straight up into something only revealed to the dying. Holding his clammy, freckled hand, I felt cognitively displaced, somewhere between 6 and 100 years old. I longed for one last word. It didn't have to be sentimental or anything, maybe just a hint of a spoiler of the end. His cancer came back just as our collective understanding of burnout was being rewritten. He didn't have time to make the shift. Dad stayed a workaholic doctor of the old order, almost out of spite. It's a cosmic punch to the face, being born on the wrong side of a tipping point. Aline, a coastal Salish death doula, came in to administer the psilocybin and prayer songs. She wore bright neon pink outdoor running gear and white New Balance sneakers. She ran between transitioning souls if they lived within our small town of Olympia or within the borders. Aline followed his death design plan, relieving us of any need to decide anything. She kept assuring us with a tender smile that Dad was past the pain gate, and his soul would be making its exit at any moment, as though she was some kind of stewardess announcing a departure as an arrival. "He's homebound," she would exclaim, like Ed McMahon or something. I could feel my body gripping, squeezing his wispy hand a little too tight. I heard my resilience coach in my ear. "Take a deep breath." I breathed in slowly and exhaled out even longer. The doorbell rang. I didn't want to let go of Dad's hand, so I leaned out the door, receiving the neighbor's homemade prayer wrapped in crisp phyllo dough. Aline encouraged us to send a text flare to the community through the Resilience app. She would say death is a communal act, and the death of a healer or a doctor is celebrated. Ever since the Community Resilience app, the CRA, went nationwide a few years ago, I'm amused we were all suddenly in the loop about death in our neighborhood. News headlines were now personal. My first flare alert lit up my phone and showed me an address around the corner, and suddenly I was getting deeply intimate with a lady who lost her son to a fight with a wildfire. I didn't want to be a burden, she said, ashamed. Receiving support, it needs to be learned. I've learned. I did a few morning volunteer shifts, holding a juice box straw for her when she couldn't raise her head. She eventually sat up enough to hold her own juice straw again. Grief will break you open if you let it in, my resilience coach would always say. I hated the CRA at first. The old me preferred to avoid other humans. Emotions were exhausting, especially my own. But when Dad got sick again, I fell off the wagon. I was working 60-hour weeks, and so he had no choice but to send up flares for farmers market deliveries, medical pickups, medicine, and backgammon, which he loved. One flare was answered by Lena, a 67-year-old nurse. Like Dad, she liked to watch The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and she was deaf enough to sleep next to him because he snored, so it worked. Thank God for Lena. She was the family I didn't even know I needed back then, and I didn't know I needed to become. You know, the CRE wasn't really a thing until the tweens got angry, militantly using their thumbs to replace Amazon and Walmart with locally made and recycled stuff. Their middle finger to the extractive capitalists and consumers who were accomplices in the sixth great extinction, they would say. Everything started to change quickly, though, after a neurodiverse lawyer turned banker sued his bank and won for getting burnt out on the run-up to the 2008 financial crisis. Unreasonable expectations are symptomatic or symptoms of a predatory system, planning and management. Burnout is a byproduct, his lawyers argued, and it's built into the design. It's not a bug. His case went all the way to the Supreme Court. Consistent workplace stress and anxiety was scientifically proven to result in illness such as heart disease, addiction, obesity, depression, and chronic pain. Extracting value from employees for financial profit like coal from the earth was deemed unconstitutional. Planned obsolescence was outlawed. Life, liberty, and happiness were not compatible with extractive capitalism. Burnout class lawsuits popped up everywhere, chemotherapy to the corporate power structure. As supply chains and service jobs started to fall or fail in 2010, community resilience apps users grew, filling the gap and proving we already had enough to go around. A few years into the shift, something inside me cracked open, and my younger self poured out, all shriveled up and neglected and pissed off. I had no idea he was even in there, just waiting for the day I loved myself enough to inquire within. That younger self didn't need to be taught how to live in a good way. He just knew. He helped me remember. I could feel his little hand clinging to my dad's, not wanting to let go. A Big Bang-sized grief wave ready to destroy and create all at once. Acute grief gave way to a new layer of being. I was raw and open, and I could feel myself as part of some mysterious unfolding, more we than me, all emptied out. It emptied out all the grief and relief inside a space. I wasn't able to get high off productivity or external validation anymore. Something else was moving me now. I could only do things that made sense. I mean, I'm an atheist, but it made sense in my soul, I guess. I don't know. For the first time, I cared about a warming planet as though it was my kin. Slowly, I realized I was helping to midwife a regeneration station for myself and other humans and non-humans, a place to learn a new way of being. The very way we approach life had to be reimagined. These days, similar schools and rehabs have been popping up all over the place. Places to heal from the extractive capitalism and practices that are giving way to a new way of being. Dad would have rolled his eyes at singing in mandatory rest times here at the ranch. But he would have loved the 3D printing tools and regenerative entrepreneurship schools. What I wouldn't give to put him in a virtual reality headset, to experience the future valley we are designing for 20 years from now in 2040. The nature of justice at the center. Maybe he could have finally received the gift of softness that he never had in life. Now, this was a speculative piece, obviously. It's not real. It didn't happen. But it was as a result of one of the projects we did. And Jessica's going to explain a bit more. We're going to use a similar methodology with all of you today when we break you up into teams. So let me bring Jessica to the stage.
Thank you, Rob. Beautifully interpreted. That was written by GOFA member Bristol Vaughan. She is an Emmy award-winning filmmaker who hit her own burnout wall and is now building that regenerative station that you heard about in Montana. And what's great about Bristol's story is that she does what we're going to do. She takes us back to see how things could be in the future. So the story was part of a project that I'm editing for the Guild. It's called 20 Decades of 2020. Back in the early days of the pandemic when nobody knew what was going on and suddenly we were all stuck in our houses, we gathered together online to look 100 years backwards and 100 years forwards to think about how we could build systems better than the ones we've suddenly found ourselves trapped in. Each week we would go 10 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out, thinking about systems. We brought together a group of people who have different lived experiences, different disciplines, different geographical locations, different ages, to try to imagine better paths and better futures. So we're going to take you through this today. First, you're going to choose an inflection point sometime in the past 50 years related to the treatment of mental illness, something you'd like to see change, like some of the things we heard about in the panel. Then you're going to imagine what today could be like. We'll discuss what you learned, and then we'll move forward. Next slide. Oh. I will vamp. So you can see here, we're going to select an historical inflection point, pivot to a different reality, project what 2021 will look like. In this particular exercise, we're not going to craft an artifact. We're going to save that for the next section. We're going to wipe the Etch-a-Sketch, bring you back to the present, and then...
Okay, so we cannot switch the slide.
Okay, and then we're going to take you into the future. We're going to imagine together an inflection point between now and 20 years from now, 2040, 2042 almost. And we're going to ask you to tell us what that inflection point is, how that will help us to get to a more auspicious future, and then your group is going to craft an artifact that is a law, an object, a device like the Community Resilience app, an institution, and then we're all going to come back together and share what we've come up with and tell the story of these futures that you have imagined together.
Now, so we're going to pass out these pieces of paper now. If Tayyib, Cassie, I would like to pass these out. These are your worksheets, and we're also going to break you up into groups of 6 or 7. It's not pretty. We're just going to look at a group and try to put you together. Y'all can do it. We can do it for you. It's sort of a fun thing to kind of see how people react to this. But here's another important point. This is your opportunity to give yourself permission. Most of you have spent your days and your lives in the soup of this, in the minutia of this. This is not a design exercise. This is an imagination exercise. It's your chance to just radically imagine how things could be, right? So, let's break you up.
So we're going to break you up in teams. Rob is going to go around and pick you out. And then what I would suggest is everybody take that moment to go take a break, take a bio break, stand up, get some water, come back and work in your group. And we will then come around and help you with this particular exercise when you get back.
Now, hold on, we're going to do some things here. We're going to take two gentlemen. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Looking at those eyes. We're going to take you three wonderful people and you two back here. We're going to make you one group here. And this gentleman and all of you here will be a group.
They get the paper and they're like, wait, so what how do we do this? Yeah.
I love that they're making the groups before they leave.
Yeah.
They feel a sense of
Yes,
obligation.
accountability.
I like that sense of obligation.
I know. Like, I don't want to do anything. It's fine. It doesn't matter. It just really the paper. So, he did the slides. I walked away. But it's totally
Okay, guys. Nice job.
Oh yeah, it's worked great so far. We'll see what we get back at the end. I think we'll get a good amount.
Yeah, that's why I said Rob's going to give people teams and then they'll come back because otherwise it would have been a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
here's fine.
In here is fine now. Moving is a bad
They
move.
all have laptops sticking right on top of it.
Yeah, they're straight. They're straight. Good job. Very, very, yeah, it was perfect. It was perfect.
I feel like I'm superfluous now. I like did my thing.
Yeah, right.
No, you should.
my husband and I are. Yeah. Well, thanks for working this in your junk.
Let's see. This is an announcement for Gary. Should I say this? Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start the second half of the session. Please make your way into the auditorium.
Lots of luck with that, Rob.
Take your last bite, your last drink, steal your last soda, and come meet us in the auditorium. They can.
They can?
Yeah.
Oh, pencils.
Actually, can they?
I didn't tell you.
No, he told me.
Oh.
Let's see if they come streaming back in.
It's so funny. It's like, we always say these types of things, like, and then I'm like, no, it's not a big deal, and we're like, yes, it's a big deal, and then they're like, no, it's fine, and then they do it anyways, and then exactly what we said was gonna happen happens. They literally just came up to me a second before, and we're like, we need to take a break, and I was like, what are you gonna talk about?
Well, hopefully we'll get some diehards.
Well, it's fine, we get paid no matter what.
We have some guests from USA Today, so that's one
Oh, really?
valuable contact they have established.
You know what, we get paid no matter what, so. That's my part. That's the silly way. I'm here, I get a paycheck, so.
We'll just imagine a future forum and tell
Yeah,
them.
right?
Here comes some people.
Oh my god, I'm gonna be like,
Like there is Mattel. There he is. There's the homie. Right there. Yeah, there's Joe. I don't know. We're gonna get him. You can hear me out there, right?
Could you hear him talking?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Start clapping at them. Cassie has many passionate thoughts about this. Are you a both places? Yes. Yeah, so you should be paid. Tayyib, this is Jane who runs, remember I was showing you the library and health community project? Oh, and I guess what the USA Today. You know, son, speaking at a special day of review after day, the judge overnight called Christopher Ray, a Catholic lawyer, one of our students, has done a comic story for the Philadelphia Tribune, so we're doing a presentation there, and we're talking about 3 different classes to try to recruit more kids into our program, in part to do the TikTok we're doing on the subject of starting with Sozosei funding. We're starting to TikTok. Boy, I don't know, it's Catholic and it's a high school. It did have a work study program. That's who they put me through to.
little kids with bow ties signing books next to like the head of the, hospital. But they're doing newspapers and that kind of thing. So there is this kind of feeder organization that exists that is that age. And then Carla, now, came from public news person and now has done some stuff published in the Philadelphia Tribune in 10th grade. Profiling a local black guy who's done great work, came back from trauma and they're trying to stop the cycle of violence by working with Drew Drexel with kids that are in the hospital. Kind of like a violence interrupter, but not really. I'm based in Washington, D.C. Somehow 2.5 hours away. So yeah, we have a couple. Actually, here. Nicole Cortez, and we have a local African American girl we're shooting at one of Lorenzo's barber's right now in Philadelphia. So Shauna was here with us. Oh, the one of the guy who does the haircut. No, this is just one of the barbers in Lorenzo Lewis's thing. So he had this idea.
Oh, beautiful.
But we wanted Shauna to get the experience of doing some interviews. But Shauna's only a sophomore at Master. Oh, really? So the name of your organization is?
We're the Guild of Architects, and then Tayyib, one is working.
We're changing our name, that's a good name. We need a name like that, like Netflix.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we the theys. We're now going to, if we could ask everyone that is in the auditorium to come down to the front seats, we're going to make a couple of groups and we're going to run our workshop. And yeah, we're going to give you just a couple of little pointers and it's going to be fun. So. I will put you all together right here. Okay. You can sort of, you can come over here, or we can sort of turn around a little bit. There we go. This is going to be our new group one. Okay. Here, if you want a group name, feel free, I'll pick that up. All right. This, don't be so intimidated by that. So this, you two, we can make this a group. If you could move in one CC as a sort of, so with the math, it makes it a little bit harder.
Oh, yeah,
All right.
I think that was all the problem, but yeah, that's good to share, and then you just write, there's not much to write, really, so you have that, you can close.
So to all of our groups, if you can hear me, all right, let's settle down. I know you're having a good time. There's coffee in your system. Maybe you were at the wine last night having some sips. I get it. It's early still. So the only two things you're really responsible for is a robust dialogue, three things, a robust dialogue, and then you need an inflection point, meaning where do you go back in history to make a change? This could be, for instance, the prison industrial complex over the last 50 years. We had a Futurist writers room where we argued that Nixon never was able to initiate that, and instead there was a Wellness Act that was passed, and as a result, mental illness was leaned into and decriminalized, as well as, so there was never a prison industrial complex that happened, and as a result, what were black communities like in light of that? So that's an inflection point. Any inflection point you want in terms of sort of creating a present where mental illness is decriminalized, or there's more parity between above the neck, below the neck. Anything, doesn't matter, whatever you pick. And do not worry about the minutia of this. If one thing we understand as futurists is we are horrible predictors of the future, and the way we imagine things now is how they needed to always be. It is not true, as our speakers so aptly pointed out. And then, what is your present state like? What is it like when you come back from that past, that inflection point, to our present? How is it different? There's some pointers on the cards, but essentially that's all you need, and we're going to do this for about 20 minutes. 30 minutes, yeah, it's not going to be. Now, our advisors are going to walk around and sort of inject themselves into your conversations, but the most important thing is try and think of an inflection point in the present state that makes you happy, right? That you think like, wow, I wish it could be this way, not it's impossible, there's no funding, I'm not going to get this policy passed. Don't do that here. You can do that with the rest of your life. Today, this is an imagination space. It's to have fun, so enjoy yourselves. No, just walk around and jump into conversations. Just jump in. Same thing. Don't be shy.
Okay, so I'm gonna set a timer.
And we're good. keep working, just talking in your ear. If any of you are having trouble with an inflection point, some things to focus on. Parity, ideal care is a good one. Who do you need to, what does mental health nutrition look like? What does mental health first aid look like? That's interesting. Yeah. You handled it. Yeah, you came in, you came off the flight, you did your thing. Now you move on. Perfect. I'm gonna grab one worksheet. I mean, we're doing so well, honestly. There, I got it.
Staying down here was the big move.
It's great. And,
Yeah, and they're just talking. It's like,
they're good. And all the homies jumped in, which is great too.
what should I do with these flip charts?
Oh, where's the easy?
They're right here. But like, to
Yeah.
section B. Or,
Yeah,
yeah, section B.
they haven't. Actually, hey, wait.
Just this time, get the picture. Us with our mask. Smiling through my mask.
You know, I'm listening. They're kind of doing both.
Doing both at once.
We'll cut to the next section and have them talk about what it could be.
So we're gonna do share in the middle.
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna need to pass around the mic. So where are the mics?
The mics are our guy. In the back. Right.
Yeah, staying here is definitely the.
I'm just gonna cue him now. Why not, right?
To say like in the next few minutes, yeah, you should be
Yeah.
moving.
Grabbing what?
Do you want to do one board and I'll do the other?
All we're gonna do is each group. You know, your inflection point was this. Right. All right, futurists. If you have not, start to move towards your alternative present. Start to move the conversation from your inflection point to what it is like to live in our current 2021 as a result of that inflection point. Just start talking about it. I'll cue you more in a minute, but if you're still on the inflection point, move to your alternative present in terms of conversation. And there's some additional prompts on the paper to that effect. Oh. Can you hear me? Yeah.
So Evan, do you want to capture and so you're on space and I'll capture?
Yeah, so we'll do one group at a time. Or do you want to do? We have like what, 1, 2, 3, 8 groups. You want to break this up? We can just do a new sheet for each group. Do you want to do that? Or should we just do a new sheet for each group? I don't think these are the same ones.
Then I think we should do that. I want everybody to get the most and not have it.
Do you want to do?
Just be like this.
What if we do like inflection point, alternative present, everything
I'll pick it up. As I'm writing, you can figure out like what do we get? We need a 4 sheet or piece something.
Yeah.
Where are we at on time?
We're at 14. I think we need to go check in.
Check in. With the
Yeah.
Doing good with the exercises. Some of them are more just in discussion, which either way is great. Some of them might
Okay.
A little futurist push.
Yeah,
So the question we're asking them is, have you got an alternate present?
yeah, let's do it.
And yeah, if not, why not?
This is the biggest group. Actually. Beautiful.
The same day, my girlfriend goes to watch the Washington Senators So they were actually just but leaders stay home and they don't understand.
That's why you've been telling me to do that as well. Yeah. So, to everyone, take a minute. Let's all just bring it in. Let's bring it in. So, you're going to continue, but you're going to pick a person, whoever wants to represent your group, to, not yet, but they're going to stand up and report your inflection point and your alternative present in a few minutes, right? Again, you're not going to break down exactly how it's structured and how it works. That's not the point. The point is, this is what we changed. This is how it feels different. Oh. Yeah, the chaos ensues.
I think they thought it was less.
No. You have 10 more minutes, by the way. It's not like in a minute. It'll be in a little while.
I saw the panic. I was like, oh, they have more time. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the eventually they're all going to say like the philosophy or Sozosei. Because we changed that to 2021. Yeah, and then we're going to then we'll record this in a second. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're awesome, by the way. I saw you guys yesterday.
So I'm talking with Kamal before.
Talking to Kamal.
At 4. But I don't know what. I said I want to talk to
Oh, I have no idea. I was going to say, well, in terms of what, nothing I know about. Other than she's driving the whole time to the airport on Friday morning.
It's cool to see with like people like that aren't insiders. Like I feel like we've relatively had some insider.
Not live.
No, yeah.
He was saying it's fun to see insiders doing such a thing.
Because we've always done it like together. Right. You know what I mean? Which is good. It's good to see. It's really exciting to see. It's great. I feel like they're really bringing in all their.
So let's see. So this will be group 1, so 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Right?
There's one in the middle there.
Oh.
That's actually the 4, 5.
6, 7. You know what? We'll do 1 for last.
No, I go to the bathroom, I'll be back.
So we'll start here. We'll skip. This is a random group. Although there should be.
So we'll have. She'll have 15.
So 5 minutes early. And
Yeah. So I'll walk around the room.
you're also right.
Oh, right.
I'll do it.
Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna move it.
All right. Futurists. I know you can have these conversations forever, but this is technically the warm-up. The fun part is yet to come. So this is group 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think there's 8 groups. But we're not going to start with group 1 because group 1 sort of organically became this super group. You know, it was like a separate groups formed, like the amoebas formed together. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like we were like, what's happening? We almost stopped it, but the conversation was really good. So let's see what happens, right? So we're going to leave y'all for a minute. And would anyone like to volunteer? Is there a group? No. Like, look at them. No. You'd like to start? Okay, good. We're going to get to y'all. Okay. So everyone, shh, quiet down, quiet. You can keep deliberating on your brilliance, but quietly. We're going to give the floor to, does your group have a name? You don't have to. Time traveling, the time traveling group. Yeah, they're the time travelers. All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Miriam Pearcel. I work with Wellbeing Trust, and I'm with this great group of time travelers. And so we decided our inflection point would be within the last 50-ish years. We kind of fudged on that a little bit and decided on that there would be no assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Oh, shoot.
And no assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So we did 2. We were very innovative. In our alternative present, we think that overall prevention would really be king in this new present. So first of all, there would be more funding for the community mental health centers with, President Kennedy being alive. There would be fewer cuts in general to those kinds of protections. Medicare also would have included more mental health funding, would have been baked into it because obviously President Johnson was the one who signed that legislation, but if President Kennedy had been alive, there would have been more funding for that. From Dr. King, really his focus on poverty, racism, and militarism would really factor in here. There would be lack of redlining and more inclusive infrastructure, more community self-determination instead of kind of building into Black and brown neighborhoods. The war on drugs would be different. Possibly the Vietnam War could have ended 4 years sooner, so fewer vets coming home with substance use disorders, and lack of mass incarceration and militarization of police. And so that's all.
Okay, I'm gonna add in there, clap it up, clap it up. Come on, encourage them, the time travelers. All right. Can I throw in that since Martin Luther King was alive, he was president at some point, or can we put that in there?
Oh, yeah, we said they would be running mates.
He's running mates. Him and who?
President Kennedy.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna put in that they were running mates and Kennedy was vice president. Put that in. There we go.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh,
I'm bringing back Malcolm X just because.
yeah. Malcolm X became the head of linguistics at MIT, right? Okay, so over there, okay, we have another volunteer. I'm loving it. Let's go over here, past the easels, through the step, which you could fall on. Oh, you have a mic. Oh, great. So you let me do that? Okay, never mind. Does your group have a name? Cloud 9. Okay, clap it up for Cloud 9. Here we go.
Thank you. Cool. So our solutions were for this alternative present that we want, were to, of course, keep the Community Mental Health Center Act moving forward, keep care community-based. Oops, sorry, lost it. Have normalization in a way that instilled parity, and reimbursements were taken care of in this space. And with a focus on mental health and substance use prevention, of course, being the norm in our alternative present, with social service supports, upstream services focusing on SDOH, in which this would be paid for, either through third-party payers or a single-payer system, and the need for truly integrated care. So with that, you could get outcomes of, if you had integrated care, then you would have integrated data. We wouldn't have all this issue around interoperability.
Nice.
So also, there would probably be, with this preventive work that we're doing in communities, we wouldn't have criminalization, so no need for connecting data systems between public health and public safety, for instance. We could avoid this weird future we're in today by not needing to do such a thing. And person-centered care should also be person-directed care, so that they choose what they're looking for that personalization. In this alternative present, we would have dramatically reduced people's trauma, dramatically reduced acuity, illness, and perhaps less need for the conversation around the disease model. And all in all, the big picture is there's also this belief that with healthier minds, we create healthier homes, healthier families, healthier communities.
So it sounds like literacy is through the roof in your alternative present.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Information
love it.
literacy,
Love it.
more
Love it.
common sense making, less division, less systemic racism, if we did these things in the first place. Yeah.
No, wait. What's your inflection point?
What's the inflection
Yeah,
point?
where did you change this?
This was changed in,
With the Kennedy model went forward, Reagan never existed.
Oh, yes, clap
Yeah.
it up. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you love Reagan. I don't love Reagan, but it's okay if you do. No, don't clap it up. Don't clap it up. But,
Reagan did not invent homelessness.
oh, yeah, I know.
I mean, he did, in our alternative,
Right.
did, but in our alternative,
If he did.
In our
So did he win the president? Did he not?
not.
Did the conversation with him and Nixon come out when he was talking trash about the African delegation? That's what I'm going to put in our alternative. She knows.
yeah.
So
No-
yeah, so
no-
that
there was no war on drugs.
no war on drugs.
Yep.
Yeah. So the conversation between Reagan and Nixon that was on the Nixon tapes was released early, and it was shown that he had some issues with black people, and he didn't win. So, okay, Cloud 9, clap it up for Cloud 9. All right. Okay, before I just pick a group, is there who would like to? Here we go. The super group right in the front.
Oh boy.
They're named the super group.
Yeah, you never go against positioning.
Yeah, never,
You
never,
already
never.
positioned us, right?
All right.
So, hold on, I can't take off my mask, but I can talk. So our inflection point was the Kennedy assassination as well.
I love
We
it.
also said, no Robert Kennedy assassination, no assassinations, just in general.
So the violence, and so that would also, I think, filter out into like the government's assaults on like black national groups and black neighborhoods and taking away the leadership. And so all that happened, and keep going.
Yep. And so if Kennedy wasn't assassinated and all these people were still alive, we know that the Community Mental Health Act would really come to fruition because Kennedy had a vision, but was never ever to really implement his vision. And so we talked about there would be a community mental health center, one in every 250,000 citizens, which would mean that I think that it would be reflective of the community that you live in, which we don't have right now, right? And so the reality would be, redlining would go away. You would have a social safety net, which is so important as well.
So this would be a central part of every community, and they would all be slightly different.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly. And it would really reflect the community, their values, the culture. And so it would be like osmotically, culturally, ingrained in that.
Which would lead to like a startup system where they could learn from each other's differences, right? And sort of innovate what these different locations, right,
Exactly.
could become. Interesting. Keep going.
But I think it's all about community, and we've been talking about that for the last 2 days, and we've lost that. It's been a little too high, and I think we've missed a lot of the constituencies that we're trying to serve, quite frankly. So that would be the inflection point. And then our alternate reality would be universal health care, mental health and physical health together. Finally got the mask off. And it wouldn't be like so separate. It would be integrated into the overall concept of well-being.
Right, exactly. And so in this alternative present, if somebody had suggested that you take them apart, they wouldn't even understand the language. They'd be like, what do you mean by that? I don't understand. Like saying, well, we're going to take your knee away from your leg, right? Like that's a sort of like, okay, beautiful.
Right. And we would have equity. Think about that. It would be equity because, again, you're going to places where you see people like yourselves, and then, not only is it diversity, but it's really, truly equity. And we would have social programs to support the basic needs of a lot of those individuals. Again, it would be community supported because housing is such a major issue that we have to deal with, especially with, the greater gap in, economic status and what have you. So it's all of that. So that's our new reality. It's kind of utopia. I want to live there.
Well, no, and that's the reason why we start with the speculative history is because if you don't and you start with the speculative future, people get too utopic too quickly. We've learned. So we always start by grounding you in some sort of guardrails. But that is beautiful, right? Maybe a doctor or psychologist or a psychiatrist could write a prescription for housing. Maybe, right? Like, oh, you're homeless, here's a prescription, go live somewhere, right? Wouldn't that be great? To our Cloud 9 point, I wanted to say that you got somewhere, but we got really quick in our prep for this, which was, we had a question for you, which was, in the future, what does mental health, the interaction with mental health and the justice system look like? And it took us 2 minutes to figure out where there wouldn't be one, right? So, clap it up for our group right here, the super group. I'll take that. Okay, who is next? Who would like to go next? Right there? There it is. There it is. Now I'm gonna do my run. I'm gonna go around here. I'm gonna go up here. Oh, you already have a mic. Again, they don't tell me, right? Oh, all right, yeah, use this mic. Skip that mic. There you go. No mics. No, there's no mic there. No mic there. No mic there.
Oh, there you go. Gotcha.
There you go.
I thought I was hiding one. Okay, so we have like a little interview planned.
Oh, let's do it. Yeah, clap it up for the innovation right here. They're adding to the writer's room. It's co-creation. It's not prescriptive. Go ahead.
So.
Well, group name.
Oh, Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse.
So, how would you like to be addressed for today?
Steve would be great.
Hello, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I have a question for you that none of us seem to be able to really wrap our mind around in the room today, and I'm wondering if you could help us. Absolutely. At what inflection point do you think we lost the ability to make good decisions around how we treat, respond to, and care for those with mental health in our community?
So thank you. There was a perfect storm, and it revolves around a federal case called Wyatt v. Stuckney out of Alabama. And this is the seminal case in the United States that led to the deinstitutionalization of our state hospitals. And what happens is Alabama has this horrific hospital, and this amazing federal judge by the name of Judge Johnson gets this case, and he sees that Alabama is basically torturing people in hospitals. And he issues this fascinating case, and he tells Alabama, you have two choices. You can make 81 changes in this hospital, and if you don't do it, I'm shutting you down. He even tells them how hot the water needs to be in their dishwasher because they weren't cleaning utensils and people were getting physically ill. So Alabama, to their credit, starts to make all these changes, but they run out of money. And Judge Johnson is a really tough guy. This is the same federal Judge Johnson who freed Martin Luther King out of a jail in Alabama. And so he shuts down the hospital because Alabama doesn't comply with his court order. And so the states now have two choices. They can spend billions or trillions of dollars upgrading their state hospitals, or they could provide community-based treatment. But there's a problem that's already been addressed. President Kennedy's Community Mental Health Act never gets funded, not just because of the tragic assassination, but also because of the Watergate. It's sucking up all the federal money in the United States, and the Congress doesn't want to spend it on people with mental illnesses. And then the perfect storm comes. What happens? They have massive cuts in housing in the 80s. They have the war on drugs, the war on crime, sentencing guidelines. And so they dump all these people out of hospitals. There's no community mental health system to absorb this population, so they go to the street and then they go to the jails because they have all these new laws criminalizing every silly act. In fact, the number of people going to jail in the United States went up 500% during that period. So how do we fix it? We stop. We don't have the war in Vietnam, so we have the money for the Community Mental Health Act. And Judge Johnson gradually releases people from the state hospital into the community, and Thorazine actually works. And so we then have a much better system, and we have a criminal justice system that is not the de facto mental health system in the United States. And we make jails the last resort for people with mental illnesses, not the entry point for people with mental illnesses.
Thank you. I do have a follow-up question, though, just to push back a little bit. So when you spoke about the 81 conditions under which they were ordered to comply with, they only completed about half of that.
Correct.
In that flashpoint, do you think anything else could have been done or there could have been a different approach? And I ask because I have my own personal perspective here, which is when we think about harm reduction and the idea of reducing harm and providing protections or safety guard rails, as you spoke to earlier, for people rather than have it be you either hit a strike or you're in the gutter. Do you think at that point there could have been anything that was done in that moment to keep hospitals afloat or to be able to make adjustments, or do you feel like it really was an extense of all or nothing, or purity, as one of my co-Mighty Mouse people suggested?
You know, it's a hard question because I think Judge Johnson was relying on the Community Mental Health Act and didn't realize it wasn't going to get funded. And so that was already out there before this case was released. I just think we didn't know much about the brain 50 years ago. And there wasn't an understanding that these are mental illnesses with different levels of acuity, and that some people maybe needed more long-term institutionalization and a slower reentry and transition into the community. So it just was so messy because we had such little information and such little knowledge. But the problem is we're still applying that little bit of knowledge and that little information today when we have all this information and knowledge and we actually know how to treat people in the community, and we know what recovery means, and we know that there is such a recovery. And as Dr. Ensel will tell you, recovery rates for a lot of people with these illnesses are better than for people with heart disease and diabetes. And so we have to have equity in our insurance, and we shouldn't be discriminating against people with these illnesses, and they should be treated just like anybody else with an illness so that they get what they need in the community and they don't end up in our criminal system.
Thank you very much. And I think that I'm concerned that we're going over. And so maybe we can come back to you another time. Oh, Anna has a quick question. I'm sorry.
Oh, please.
So what do we learn from our experience from the 1970 Act that we can apply today? What's our takeaway message?
Well, our takeaway message would be that we should be spending our dollars effectively and efficiently and not wasting them on putting people in jail.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Clap it up for Mighty Mouse, who innovated the structure, which we love. Oh, do you guys mind going next? I'm already here. No, oh, nope, they're volunteering. You get another minute. All right, here we go. Do they have a group name? What is the group name? I'm really excited about the group name. Okay. Oh, right here? Beautiful. Do we have a group name?
Thank you. Don't put us in a corner.
I had dinner with this lovely lady
Yeah.
at the foundation, as did she with all the futurists. We had a good time.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Good table. What were we, 10?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But your name of your group.
Okay, don't put us in a corner.
Got it.
Okay. So what we talked about a few moments, but then when we realized all of those moments had a core, and that core was that we've never really considered people with mental illness to be equal. So our alternate universe is that we really think of people with mental illness as equals. And that allowed us to envision a whole new future where we would believe in funding. We could fundraise too. And we talked about when you have a loved one or a friend that has a cancer diagnosis, they're wrapped in care and services and supports in beautiful settings. So I was sharing at a friend who's going through breast cancer treatment in New York. She said it was like checking into a 5-star hotel. There is no one, no matter how much money you have, is going to say that about mental health. That they felt like loved and cared for by how the physical space looked. Most mental health places in Philadelphia do not even want to put their name on the building because of the stigma associated with going in those doors. So we talked about that. Of course, we also talked about Reagan and the failure of funding and fair funding and further discrimination of certain groups. And we threw in there conversations around not believing in harm reduction. But it all came back to that core of not really believing and then not acting on people as equals. Did I miss anything?
No, so clap it up. So we're talking about more of a social shift, right, in the communal zeitgeist, in the pop zeitgeist around the mental health stigmas, which is a great approach because, again, that speaks to literacy, but even more than literacy, it speaks to empathy, right? So in your alternate, just to sort of give a little foreshadowing,
Yes.
there would be a lot of artifacts that would be perhaps in TV shows, mental health is not stigmatized, right? Perhaps in books, novels, talk show hosts, people that are in the public eye that have mental health issues are quick to call them out and quick to make them part of their entire persona that we are embracing, right? In your world, that would be, it wouldn't be that, for instance, stars, celebrities, authors, writers throughout the 80s and 90s were hiding those things and trying to keep them down. It would be something that they were happy to say and they were happy to be part of, right, in the public conversation. So that would lead to policy shifts which follow about 10 years behind social shifts, as we know. So, beautiful. Clap it up.
Thank you.
Please. Don't put us in the corner, right, which is kind of like a early 2000 like singing group, right, when they had the sentences instead of the names. You have not gone yet. Who has not gone yet? 1, 2, right? That's it? All right. Who wants to go? Well, they're calling it, see? Sorry. You guys just want me to run around. That's all it is. I did.
Okay, so we called ourselves the Dream Team, and we went back to the inflection point at the point of the institutionalization. And what we decided is that we should have passed the ADA with Olmstead Enforcement and the Parity Act at the same time.
Beautiful.
So that as we started that process, people had rights, and it was recognized, and we thought that that could reduce stigma moving forward as well. We talked about the need then to have a continuum of services so that people, if they needed hospitalization, could get it, but they could also get all the supports they needed in the community from the full continuum. Also talked a lot about housing. I mean, I personally, if Reagan didn't get elected, that would have been really helpful too. We could get rid of the war on drugs.
A running theme amongst all of you, I see. Go ahead.
But really, if we would have started with sort of that understanding socially that as people transition to the community, they had the right to have care on parity, and also had the right to live in the least restrictive settings, and that we needed to provide that for them. So that was really our things. We also talked about the need for, going back to the early presentation, a user-centered approach to developing our systems of care, so that we're not blaming people for not engaging, that we actually find out what they want to engage in and what they find helpful.
Beautiful. Did your group have a name? I didn't catch it.
Dream Team.
Dream Team. Big clap for Dream Team. Beautiful. And last but not least, and least but not last, or they are over here. I'm gonna cut right through. Who's doing it? Oh, this is fun. This is fun. You can? All right, there we go. Encourage them, please. Encourage them, please. Yes, yes, yes.
Our group name is Defenders of Self-Determination.
Oh, shoot. Nice. Way to close.
But a lot of what we discussed has been discussed by other groups. We anchored a lot to the discussion of deinstitutionalization and whether that was a bad thing, whether that was a good thing, who is actually being served under and not served explicitly under the institutionalized system, and kind of the perpetuating disparities within that system. So we anchored a lot to that and thought about, okay, what if people hadn't just, like, if we hadn't hit a cliff of deinstitutionalization and instead reimagined that system? So thinking about bringing in parity of funding to actually serve the broad population of people who are experiencing mental health, and really thinking about this aspect of how do we bring in self-determination throughout the system? So how do we build on some of the things from patient advocacy groups and history around patient rights movements of not wanting to be forced into certain types of treatment, but how do we instead create a system that's more harm reduction informed and tiered, and thinking about kind of in the future, if you had something where when you were, we had a lot of public defenders in the group and talked about experiences of, okay, so if I have a client who is experiencing symptoms that are consistent with their illness, how are they given multiple options, and how are they not being forced into treatment? How are we not having a legal system that is dictating a certain treatment that people should receive, and that there is self-determination, and that if they refuse it, that's okay, and you can come back, and if you want it later, you can access it. And in the meantime, we have this other supportive services that might not be the evidence-based intervention that a doctor would prescribe, but is something that makes you feel warm and makes you feel comfortable and makes you feel trusted.
Yeah, we call it a milkshake, not a broccoli salad. So you want to make it, that's one of our collaborators, Pop Culture Collaborative, said, try to make it a milkshake if you can, rather than cold broccoli, please.
Yeah, so we focused a lot, I think, of more on kind of the emotional experience of I have choices, I feel safe, I feel like there's places that I can go. And that was really, I think, like the content of a lot of our things.
So then when someone realizes, or the community helps them to realize they're having a mental health issue or crisis, instead of this fear, there is sort of like, well, I can just plug into this warm avenue, and there's a comfort to, like, I've seen this happen with other people. Right. It's not a bad thing. This is a good thing. I can't wait to get started. Right? Beautiful.
And I don't have to progress along it at any certain speed. I can kind of get in the flow and move at whatever pace feels right for me. So.
Beautiful. Well. Beautiful. Okay. What was your name again?
Dana.
No, the group.
Fierce Defenders of Self-Determination.
That's it, Fierce Defenders. So, two quick, one, just so you understand this co-creation, we will probably use what we learned from you to design Futurist writers' rooms for non-experts who we are trying to get engaged in literacy around mental health issues and mental health issues. So thank you so much for your knowledge, because we are going to take it, design, and help it to encourage communities to get involved and to get more literate. So thank you so much. Second, I want to acknowledge, I want to acknowledge our virtual audience. Yeah, I know. Our program with the mics, it wasn't necessarily conducive to a virtual audience the way some of the other ones were. So if you have any questions, concerns, please send them in. We'll try to get to them. Now, we are going to now stay in the same groups. Oh, quickly. You're our experimental group. So we were thinking for the next section, we could break you up or you could stay together. Together, that's what we thought. Okay, done. It's your decision. No one's going to you. So now we're going to move to our next phase of this, which is really sort of the meat of it, which is imagining a future where mental health is decriminalized, where 988 is standard, or perhaps 988 doesn't even need to exist. We've gotten to that point. We don't know. So Jessica is going to read just your sheet, just follow along, just to give you a prompt of how we're going to do this, and then I'll come back.
All the questions, sir? Yeah. All right. So we're going to start, can you hear me?
This one.
Okay. We're going to start in an aspirational future, and we heard some of your aspirations. We don't have to worry about Reagan in this one. So 20 years from now, where there's an abundant crisis care continuum and a wide-reaching cultural understanding, let me take my mask off, of basic mental illness care and wellness. So some questions to consider. What does the future look like where, for most children, trauma is identified and treated holistically before it takes root? If we could design a system without silos, how would we work together? What would a future look like where 998 doesn't even need to exist? In this future, what basic awareness and knowledge do we want everyday people to have in order to care for one another in community? And then we're going to move, we're going to talk about the inflection point. So in this future, what do we need to do now to realize our aspirational future?
Jessica, it's so that we go back in time.
Yeah, we'll go back.
Wait.
Normally we do it that way, but I think we're going to pause on that one, and we'll prompt you on the second part. This is in the moment.
Okay,
this is the moment, yeah. No, because of, so work on that question first, right? You're going to now time travel 20 years in the future, and what Jessica read, what is on your sheet, is a reality. What does it look like, right? What does that reality look like? What does it feel like? What are you doing in that reality, right? What is your job like? I mean, these are prompts, these questions, so you can focus on those, or you can expand out, as our group back here did with the interview, to think of other aspects of that future. But again, you're not thinking about how you got there. That's not the point. You're thinking about you're there, and it's a reality. What is it like, right? Whatever that means to you, following the prompts, what is that like? Go. case. Just in case.
I don't know.
What do you, so we should definitely do present state. Let's definitely do present state. Your insights on this are good.
Yeah.
I always ask you that.
Isn't this the part that's like the actual part that matters?
Hello, hello. All right, take a minute, take a pause. Everyone take a pause. Just, so now that we're sort of in our speculative future, all right, which is the fun part. It's fun to think of like, what if we had this working out? How would it be? We're gonna slowly transition you into sort of the meat of the whole exercise, or couscous, or impossible, whatever you're into. And that is the inflection point. Now, for this exercise, imagining the future, the inflection point is actually today, right now, right? So the next part of your conversation, the next half is, what can we do now to institute this future, right? What can we lean into, right? And Jessica's gonna read the questions off that we have for that. This mic is really hot, just so you know, hold it way far back.
All right, so what acupressure point in the system can we target to decriminalize mental illness today that will lead to the future that you're all hoping for? What needs to be done to make 988 become a trusted source for communities that have been systematically oppressed? Where can people suffering from mental illness go to be treated in a compassionate way? What safe harbors can we make? And who do we need to collectively become for this to be possible?
Any of those questions you can answer, or you can make up your own. But the idea is thinking about the future you've just sort of created. Just discuss what are some things that could happen today to institute that future, right? Continue.
Depends on the group familiarity. We do present with future sometimes with people who we trust will know the exercise really well already. Because sometimes, like, if we do present first and then future, then they never have to like swap. Yeah. Exactly.
We used to, in the last, like, what, 2 or 3.
When we work with groups like these, we usually end with present.
Yeah.
You do end with
Usually.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, but with pop culture, we end with we usually end with present because it's
Sometimes when it's like the guild members who are like they're already like in it, we'll end with future because then it's like people are the tree. We were gonna become half human, half tree. Like when it's more sci-fi, we'll do the.
I feel trust me. Whenever I think actually, if you stopped on the present, people would have to actually really think like, oh shit, now how are you gonna actually make this happen?
Yeah.
I always wish they ended on the present. I was like, this sounds great, and
it's also like the emotional journey, right? Like
it's the emotional journey.
The history is always kind of fun, but it's also a little hard.
Right.
Then it's like, oh, I get to just imagine how my druthers here.
It's liberating.
And then they're like, oh, I gotta go back now.
Exactly.
How much more report back is there gonna be? Maybe like
we just came up with an idea. So we're gonna do a real quick headline exercise where people are like, okay,
what's one action?
if somebody was reporting on this, the pivot point, the inflection point that you were just discussing, what's one headline from today that will show the change this is going to make?
And then there will be another report back?
No,
we're going to stop there because so we're not going to do the artifact.
You said 47 minutes. What's that?
Nothing to do with us.
Really? Yeah, I have no idea what that is. We're done to our
bomb found down over here.
That was there when we got here.
I think that's till the end because Melissa and someone else are going to.
Returning back.
So there's still more. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah. We'll try. We're gonna try to get like 10 minutes. Okay. Yeah.
They're trying to speed too, right? To close off the whole summit. They have like 45-minute allocated.
Oh, they do?
It's till 1 o'clock, so there's 3:30. Yeah.
Oh my god, I keep just business card bowling it. It's good. They're just but yeah, it's a group that yeah, but the hot speed they will go that direction.
So, no, I'm just saying, we have to talk to Melissa. We have to talk to Melissa. Yeah. I don't know any. Do you know that? I don't. Yeah, I know.
We're fine.
I'm going to the social media team for sure. I'm gonna go find it. Yeah, too. You right here? Yeah. We're gonna gather everybody. No problem.
So I understand the desire to be excellent, you know, and now we are problem solved. All of the
From Thai, they are family members, children. Sometimes
I recognize it.
it
Took a while.
family members
Family member.
It's gotta be part of the other non-public.
And I would expand that. So I can always use
Yeah. Well, they're still trying to figure out.
We talked about being decriminalized.
There should be,
So, everyone, quick pause, quick pause. So in about 10 minutes, we're going to do share backs. We're going to do them slightly different. We're going to do a one-sentence headline, maybe with a little context, headline from your inflection point, right? Some headline about your present state that created the future, right? It could be from in the future, a headline about back in 2021, this happened, which helped us get to this, right? Right? Yeah. This is specifically an offering for y'all because we thought it would be fun.
No, so we'll do the share back after too. I'll tell them this later. We want to start with the headline and then.
We have a lot of people here who are one of the guests we
Just remind them. So you'll share your headline and share your story.
So just to make sure I didn't confuse you, you're doing the headline and a brief contextual share back with it. So you can add a little bit to it, right? Don't feel stifled or creatively put in a box.
are they still doing that? No one ever gets fired. Oh, you're from Mural Arts. So we can. So we're gonna. Is that not even here? Is that
team? Can you introduce our people? Love for y'all to meet them.
How's it going?
Totally cool. This is Rob and Anita. Nicole. Robert's the one who goes way back with me. They play football.
It's like you don't know Tayyib on the show. You know
I'm very anxious. It's time to share. So Julia's doing a little Sozosei time.
All right, I'm going to call it all back, calling it all back, calling it all back. Everybody, all your groups. We are now going to engage in a share back exercise. Right here, the super group will be one. Now, the important part here about this is fun. Even if you don't get everything you need said, the whole point of putting this last part of the current at the end is so you leave with it in your mind, sort of what the imagination is of what we're working on today to create tomorrow, right? So I'm going to pass it to my co-facilitator, and she's going to walk you through this iterative exercise.
So originally we were going to have each of you create an artifact, but we decided to create a joint one, the Sozosei Times. So each of you is going to write a headline based on the inflection point that you've been discussing. What kind of change is it making in the world? And in order to model this, we have an actual professional journalist, part of our new news initiative. Cassie, take it away.
Thank you. So a sample headline based off of things that I was hearing coming up from you all would be something like the new I'm okay, you're okay bill, which reforms how mental health is discussed and identified in schools will change the face of how mental health is treated for Generation Omicron. That was the joke.
So,
Starting, I believe, the supergroup. Man, the supergroup is like ready. Oh, wait, who in the supergroup? Right here? I saw 2 hands. No, we good? Y'all want to take a minute? We're good? All right, here we go.
She's totally voluntolding me. Yeah, telling me. Okay. So we actually have a headline and a subheadline. All right. So it's stop, look, and listen. And then we wanted to add in some musical, into this. So it's like ABC. It's easy as 1, 2, 3, right? Okay. All right. And so here are the ABCs, and we're stealing this from the state of Ohio. Woo! All right. A, ask how you're feeling, right? A for ask how you're feeling. B, be aware of signs and symptoms. And then C, care for yourself, right? Ooh. My team didn't even know that I did that.
Could you repeat it one more time for our...
Sure. So it's ABCs are ask how you're feeling, be aware of signs and symptoms, and then C is care for yourself. And others, sorry. Care. Now, did you want us to talk about the other stuff that we were talking about, the inflection? Okay. I've got 5 pages. All right, I'm kidding. So if this is the inflection point today, then we thought that we really have to look at what we know works. So if mental health first aid is effective, or take the components that are effective, we've got to make sure that that's known far and wide and put into practice. We need to increase assertive community treatment programs, or ACT treatments, and not just for crisis intervention, but for regular care. So again, I think it's put into practice what we know works and stop doing the things that don't work. And so that's, I think, ties into our headlines. We also thought that we really have to look into the fundamental support that we need to give to our communities, which is housing. Supportive housing, and also support not for just the individual that is living with the experience, but also with the family and the caregivers, because oftentimes they're the first responders. They're the ones who know the history, the chronology of the condition, et cetera, et cetera. So it's about being inclusive of everybody that's involved in this journey, including the community.
Supergroup, okay. Who's next? Yes, I love it. All right. Your group is again? Time Travelers. All right, let's time travel.
Melissa needs one because she's going to do typewriter noises in the background. No.
Let's go.
I'm a comedian as well. Anyway, so that behavioral health sciences. Behavioral health services contribute $50 billion to community revitalization funding. Family-based health services success shifts the funding. Behavioral health services contributes $50 billion to community revitalization funding. Family-based health services success shifts funding.
Do you want to give a little
Little
context?
background, yeah, it was all future state where it's family-based, holistic preventative measures. So it's community-centric. So there's this shift of funding. So we've demilitarized, we've decreased the criminal justice, we're increasing education spending, and then the cost savings that we have in our new system is shifting funds to other valued programs.
Beautiful. Time Travelers.
Can they donate their paper to Julia?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking big, right? If you're thinking big. Who would like to volunteer next? Ah, I love it. See, I kind of side-eyed you a little bit to see. All right, your group? You had the name, the long name. Fierce Defenders of Self-Determination, which is going to be an acronym later on. Go ahead.
Thanks. Schools nationwide adopt mental health first curriculum. Will devote 50% of classroom hours to mental health, relationship building, family and community health.
Might be my favorite so far.
Yeah. And so our idea, our idea was that so long as mental health services are some external program that you need to access and are sort of separate from your day-to-day life, there's always going to be some amount of barrier. And so in our sort of utopian future, it's that you reorient your day-to-day life. And so for children, that's going to school. So instead of learning something in a textbook, you spend and devote hours that it's something important to sort of focus on your mental health, to focus on developing healthy relationships with others, and sort of, you could even see school as like, we're preventing domestic violence in the future by teaching people to have healthy relationships. Or, yeah.
Write that one down. That's an amazing, right? Talk about a slogan. Preventing domestic violence in the future today, right? Who can't get behind that? All right, you guys are not playing around. That was like Eminem style, like just dropped it on us, you know what I mean? Right here? Do you? Okay, your group, you have the other long name group that I like. What is it? Don't put them in the corner. I'll take you out right now. You mean the front of the stage.
We've had some attrition in our group, and so we've become pretty theoretical. We just toss ideas around. But we had actually a very similar idea about starting with early elementary education, emotional awareness kind of things, but then extending that to adults as well. Because there is a lot of emotional education for current kids, but anyone over the age of 10, as we said, hasn't had that. And so we were, very succinct and very positive. Our headline is, "We made it," and everything that entails. But I think the main ideas were around early education, around emotional awareness, and normalizing mental health as a normal part of life, something that we can talk about in the workplace.
Nutrition, like turning that into a whole.
Mm-hmm.
How do you,
Yeah, and then like for adults, saying like you can take a mental health day and say like, "Hey, I'm feeling sad today," and having that be like an actual reason to take off work. So we made it.
With Anita, our resident expert, we had a lot of talk about metaphors for mental health nutrition. Besides just mental health first aid, what do you need and from a nutritional standpoint and a care standpoint to give yourself? And anyway, it's pretty fun. And I have 2 kids, so I'm dramatically worried about their mental health as they get older in the society. So we're going to, right here? Okay. Your group name again? Mighty Mouse, that's right.
It's a small and mighty group. So we rooted our conversation in the idea that people with, mental illness, we don't want to see them having to feel special or other, but to have a full access to the rich life that we all want to have access to. And, the healthcare is there to live that life. It's not there to just, we're not there to be in a fancy, cancer hospital for life or a fancy psychiatric hospital for life. We're there to live the rest of our lives. So our headline was "Community Ends." We had a new journalism approach, so we did a listicle approach, kind of a BuzzFeed headline. "Community Ends Decriminalization of Mental Illness" with 14 essential program elements. And then we had a subhead, "90% of prisons are now closed."
I like how they're like the digital future group. They're doing interviews, they're shooting shorts, right? They're gonna have like a virtual reality, something's gonna happen over here. Okay, who do we have left? Is that it? That's not everyone. Right here, right? Is that it? Did I get both groups over here? I did, right here. This is our last, no, there's 2 groups here, right? One here, one here. Okay, who wants, right here?
Will you tell the groups to send a representative to write their headline on the board if they have
Check.
Oh, okay, we're done. Oh, okay, hold on, right here.
Okay. Cool. So Our headline is America Cares, Not Condemns. And you can apply that at the local level. Philadelphia cares. We don't condemn our people. So take that to anywhere. But yeah, all in all, we summed it up with answering these questions here. What does the future look like? If we had a system without silos, and that would be, we have to break down the silos together to truly be successful. There needs to be no wrong door in seeking care. Coordinated organizations of caregivers, but that also will take leadership in order to break down those silos. What we found is that you almost need community leaders to make organizations break down the silos. So in other words, who's going to make the community do it? Is it the county judges, the city leaders? Is it the funders? So that's one part of it, is we need leadership to break down the silos. We need the funding. We need easy solutions and coordinated care and data sharing for that one. For 988, we also came up with needing to improve that. How do we make that successful? That's kind of a tough one. And what we came up with is, instead of calling it a new suicide hotline or a new crisis line, we need to change the language around this. We need to have a creative public awareness campaign, fun and positive and culturally relevant, with personalities that speak to the audience. And instead of calling it a crisis line, let's call it a Lean on Me line and play that song, Lean on Me. But you know, that may be for an older audience. For a younger audience, we might need a younger song and a younger influencer, you know, communicating to that audience. But
Would not be hard to find.
oh, exactly, exactly. So those are a couple of our solutions. I'll stop there.
Okay, the other piece is that we need to change our cultural assumptions and therefore our language. And even some of the things in the questions, like suffering, we're assuming people are suffering. They may not be in the way you think they should be. They may not be neurotypical, to grab a term from the outside there, but they may not be suffering. So we need to ask people, what do you want? What do you need? So our assumptions need to be challenged, our language needs to be challenged, and that will bring us the inflection, one of the inflection points.
Wrap it up. We do a lot of work around language. Yes. Oh, yes. So could anyone from any group go up and, if you could, write your headline? Oh, you got it. Oh, what's your group name? Cloud9, Cloud9. Last but not least, Evan, do you want me to make that announcement?
We have one. We're missing one headline from the group before.
All right. Last but not least, who do we have? Dream Team. Give it up for Dream Team. They are our final group. Y'all have been amazing. This has been an amazing journey and an amazing writer's room. Who's doing it? Right here? Here we go.
All right, so we have headline, mental wellness has become the new celebrity. I'm not okay, you're not okay, but that's okay, we'll figure it out. And then there's more text. We socially destigmatize mental illness and have begun to invest in whole body wellness, which we immediately began addressing previously overlooked necessity areas such as housing, skilled, diverse, inclusive, culturally competent, and compensated workforce, a just and equitable workforce, advanced helpline resources, and magical technical support.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so I believe our time is coming to an end, correct? Evan, where are we on time?
Oh, okay. You're right. We're going to have a half a headline here.
Oh, for what? For what?
Behavioral health services contributes $50 billion to. We got it?
So normally, I mean, in a longer form writer's room, from this point, we would start to look at groups we didn't design for, right? Counter revolutions, counter forces. We would get into sort of like the non-utopic version of what happens as a result. Who's going to push back? What groups are we not thinking about? Who is left out? Where are the areas we're not seeing? Yeah, but we're not doing that here because you've all been so great. But just to let you know, like, it doesn't stay in utopia. We usually then move into to anticipate counter forces to But the important part is, I won't get into that. I'm nerdy about this stuff, you can tell. But the point is that if we cannot imagine what this is like and don't think about it and don't have fun doing it, no one else is going to either, right? If it's, and that has to do, like with my friend over here said, with the language, right? How do we change it to engage people? How do we change this to engage people? How do we get people literate? How do we make it a milkshake instead of like, a carrot, although I love carrots, right? So we have Mural Arts is next. We have Melissa right here. I'm sorry, Melissa right here. Okay. So, from the Futurist Writers Room and the Guild of Future Architects, thank you so much for playing with us. This was a wonderful time. You guys were game, and we love it. The conversation is great, and we truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'll pass it back. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Let's hear it again for our friends at the Guild of Future Architects. Woo. Thank you all for that wonderful romp into the future. It is now my pleasure to begin our closing of the summit. Not my pleasure that it's ending, but my pleasure to introduce the chair of the foundation, Dr. Bill Carson.